My son Ian, he suicided when he was 18. Certainly the run-up to when he died, that year was quite horrific. We realise now he'd been very depressed beforehand, but we also know that part of the reason was smoking marijuana. But he'd been taking the marijuana before then. He wasn't depressed then. He was a happy young man, just trying it out with the guys. He played ice hockey, which he loved. He was very popular. He had lots of friends, and he enjoyed life. He started being quite paranoid. This was before he had the attempts of suicide. That's what was the lead up to it. And he got it fixated in his mind the police were going to come and kill him. The first time he mentioned something like it, I just laughed. I thought, he's just kidding me on, typical teenager. The first attempt, he actually was quite ill and got clots at the base of his lungs. So he wasn't actually, it was a week or two before he was admitted to the psych unit. And he would go out of hospital, say he's fine, and then he would try another attempt. We must have had about 6 attempts over a period of about 4 or 5 months, and he knew he wasn't well. Sometimes he couldn't sleep all night and he would sleep all day, and by this time he was off all drugs, with no marijuana, nothing, had been for about a year, but he was so badly affected, and the medication they were giving him just made him a bit of a zombie. And he started hearing voices too. He was very lonely because he was very isolated. All the school friends had disappeared. All the friends had disappeared. I really think he was in a place where he couldn't see himself getting better at all. And nobody was able to help him. And these thoughts of suicide had just gone on for months. They'd never gone away. They were always there in his mind. Myself, I think I just went into automatic pilot. I knew I still had to go to work in between times when he was not acute. It was extremely distressing and stressful to watch him literally deteriorate in front of my eyes. That was just awful. Twice before, when he tried to suicide, he'd come home and told me what he'd done. And I would rush to the hospital. He'd actually been missing about 4.5 weeks before when he died, till we found him. And that was very, very stressful. I would walk in his bedroom was first on the left, and it was always empty. But that last time when he didn't come home, I knew. I just knew. And then that's the date I recognise as when the day he died, not the day we discovered him. A friend of mine was doing a course at TAFE, and she came home one day with this book that had lists of self-help groups. And I found Compassionate Friends in there and phoned them. And of course, their first meeting for the year was February, and I was there. That was my lifeline, going into that hall once a month. And you knew everyone in that room had lost a child through suicide. And we were talking about numbers of 20 plus at each meetings at those times. We sit in a group and we talk. And you get your time to talk. And it often starts like, how have you been this past month? What's been happening? And all the little various things come out. And there's so many things that we all have in common. The first are so difficult for people. We had our first Christmas just within 2 weeks. The first birthday was January. I found the first anniversary extremely difficult. I didn't want to turn around and say to people, well, my son died a year ago. It couldn't be a year. It was like a denial thing. And often the second year people find more difficult difficult in a more different way, because the first year I still think they're coming to terms with, this has happened to me. And the second year it sinks in, this is going to be forever. And that can make the second year extremely different. With year 3, people start to smile and have a laugh sometimes. You put on a happy face when you're with other people. It took me 5 years after he died before I felt any sort of peace whatsoever. I think that's when I finally accepted that this was his illness and it was his decision. And I And this sense of peace came on me. But for the people that have no idea that's going to happen to their child, the shock of that is just huge. And dads whose sons have died suddenly, I find, are very stressed out because they feel they should have known. But they're very good. People who are depressed, young people who are depressed, are very, very good at hiding it. They appear the life of the soul of the party, enjoying themselves, yes. It's all internalised. They can't talk about it. Close relatives often find it very difficult to talk with the family because they're frightened they may upset them. But the family are desperate to talk about their child. And tears are good for the family because it helps them when they're healing as well. And it could also help the relatives too. So if you do know of anybody that's lost a child, yes, speak to them about their child. I actually think it's a very good idea to go and get some professional help initially. Someone else to talk to one-to-one. I've seen the families that have done that, or people have come out to their house and talked to them, talked to their children, and they all say how much it's helped them. Tell them how you're feeling, be honest with them. Tell them how awful you feel. Tell them if you feel suicidal because of what's happened to you. Just tell somebody, utter the words. You'll get help. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You'll get the help because there's help out there. And what you've got to understand is all the feelings you're feeling are perfectly normal for somebody who's bereaved. You don't expect to die before your children, but children have been dying before their parents for forever.